Hey everyone, it's Juliette. Elsa! Hey everyone, it's Juliette, and today's beginner's corner piece is called Little Ancient French Song by Tchaikovsky. So as per usual, I'll play it to you first. So the first thing that needs to be said about this piece is that it is extremely legato. Every note has to be played right up to the beginning of the next one. So one of the easiest ways to achieve that super legato effect in both hands is to use a really clever fingering. So I'm just showing you here the top of my score. I'm not quite sure how clearly you can see it. Maybe I'll just zoom in on this first bar. You can see my fingering. Let's take it for the right hand, is 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. And using that fingering just really helps to keep it legato. So if I take it down now to the keys, and do that again. That is completely legato. Every note goes to right up to the beginning of the next note, and that fingering just really helps that. So it's important. So the fingering is really important for a couple reasons. Firstly, in this case, it really helps you get around the legato comfortably so that you don't have an awkward gap created by the fingering. Like, you want to make it as easy as possible for yourself to make it sound how you want to sound. And the fingering is also really important because when you come back to it, like if you leave the piece for a while and you decide you want to try and revive it and come back to it, it's always really important that you relearn the piece with the fingering that you used beforehand, just because it's embedded in your mind and it's so much easier to play with a fingering that you're already comfortable and already familiar with. So that's why it's really important to write in your fingering, take the time to work it out, write it in, keep it there. There's also a very tricky thing right in the beginning of this piece, which continues throughout the whole piece, is that in the left hand you often have, so in the first bar you've got this on the left hand, but underneath that you have to hold a G throughout the whole bar. You have to make sure that you hold that G minim down all the way through. It just adds another dimension, it adds more warmth, it just adds more colour, more tones. You get the picture. And that's not easy to do. Can you see Sabrina? Hello. That's not easy to do, to hold down that minim. The best advice I have really to help you really master that is to just practice it really slowly. Take your time about it. Take the time to work out exactly where each finger should be when. I'm sure I've already mentioned this in one of my other beginner's corner videos in another piece, but this piece has two melody lines essentially going on at the same time. You've got melodies in the right hand which you play at the same time as melodies in the left hand, and it's really important that you bring both of those melodies out, that you try and phrase both of them, so that, you know, if you're just phrasing one melody and not the other, that's just gonna sound weird. It just kills it. So it's really important that you work out how you're going to phrase each hand first before you start putting them together, because that can get really tricky when you're trying to make two hands sound unique. So what I'm saying is that, taking just the first bar still, in the right hand you've got this melody, but you've also got this melody in the left hand. They are both equally important, so you have to make sure you bring them both out, not necessarily equally. You might decide you want one hand to dominate over the other, but which is probably a better idea. But at the same time, you don't want to be singing out the right hand while the left hand's going or something. You've got to make sure you pay attention to both, and that's why it's really important that you work really hard on each of them separately and master them separately, so that it's easier when you try and put them together. I think it was in my last video that I suggested the technique of either imagining that a singer is singing the melody or actually singing it yourself. So I can give that example again, but what that does is it really helps you realise, and it helps you to work out how exactly you want the melody to sound and how you want to phrase it, where you want the volume to go up, like where you want a climax to be, where you want it to come down, all that, where you want to round off the ends, I don't know, whatever you want. So for the sake of showing you again, obviously I can't sing two melodies at once, so I'll just sing the right hand melody with it. But you can do this with both hands, you can do one and then the other. Yeah, you get the picture. And so on. So you can see how exactly you want it to sound, and then you can copy that with your hands on the piano. The other thing is that this melody, like this idea, is repeated a couple times in the piece, and as I've said in previous videos, a way that you can make similar sounding parts of the piece sound different is by changing the dynamic level a bit. Here you've actually got another like side to it that you can change to make it sound different, and that's that you can change the balance between the two hands. So what I mean by that is that the first time it comes, you might say, okay, I'm going to let the right hand dominate over the left hand, I'm going to make the right hand melody stand out more than the left hand. So something like this. And then the next time it comes, you might say, I want to actually bring the left hand up a bit to make it a little bit more prominent. Or you might even say that you want the left hand to completely dominate over the right hand. It's all really down to personal preference. Like personally, I would go with the first two options there. I don't think I would bring out the left hand over the right hand, but if that's what you like and you can make that work, then that's cool. What else? Everybody wants to be a cat. Meow. Okay, now I think it's time to move on to what I think is probably the trickiest line of this piece, starting from bar 17, where the left hand switches from legato to staccato, and I think this is really tricky because the left hand switches to staccato, but the right hand does not. So you've got two different things, and it is so hard to coordinate something like that. I don't really know how best to advise going about this to master that and to get the coordination. I think the best advice that I have really is to make sure that you consolidate each hand first. Make sure that you've mastered each hand separately before you try and bring them both together, because if you ingrain how each hand is supposed to be in your head, then it will be a lot easier when you come to putting them together. And then again, when you do come to putting them together, don't try and rush into it. Make sure you start really slowly so that you know where each note is supposed to be and you know exactly where to place each note. So the very last thing that I want to say about this piece is with the last two bars, there are 3 absolutely gorgeous chords, and I think it's so important that you make them really rich and warm and colourful and all of that juicy stuff. So if I just play you those last 2 bars again. The harmonies are just they're just so beautiful, and I just want to make sure that you guys really milk those chords and end the piece on a stunner, because it's just so beautiful. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe, and yeah, have a lovely day everybody. Bye!